been learning a lot about the Mormon mommy bloggers, or the malevolent Mormon mommy bloggers, as we've been calling them here, Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. But we haven't, a lot's been focused on Ruby. She's the one who I think all the attention kind of went to, but Jodi's just as twisted, if not possibly even more, I think. We're going to take a look at her life coaching. She was actually a licensed, counselor, someone who could supposedly help people for many years. The Mormon Church recommended her. She was on their list of recommended therapists, counselors. I don't know if it was a therapist or a counselor that she was recommended as, but she was recommended, I believe, up until 2012, when the church said, we're going to have to take you off that list because there's been some issues here of her sharing HIPAA information of a patient with the church that was private. And they're like, yeah, we can't do that. She even had her license slightly revoked for a period of time, but she got it back. Church could not officially, in an official capacity, recommend her, but sounds like there was a lot of insiders that still said, go to Jodi, my flock, because she seems to really know what she's talking about. Utah has been thrown into the whirlwind of controversy following the arrest of YouTube vlogger Ruby Franke's business partner Jodi Hildebrandt on child abuse charges. Alongside Franke, Hildebrandt was involved in counseling Mormon couples and families through her life coaching service, ConneXions. However, former patients are now shedding light on the practices that they believe were more akin to a cult than genuine counseling. So let's learn about this, shall we? Hildebrandt's program, described by 7 former patients who accused her, or rather accessed her services between 08 and 19, methodically isolated themselves from their loved ones, used truth, quote unquote, and deception to manipulate perceptions, and even reportedly shattered marriages. She wanted everything to stay in the group, one said, saying, quote, "You're not allowed to have a different option than her," commented Stephanie Jones, a former patient. The revelations came amidst a shocking incident where Franke's malnourished 10-year-old daughter and injured 12-year-old son were found in Hildebrandt's residence, leading to both women facing 6 counts of felony child abuse. It's essential to underline that these charges are unrelated to the allegations emerging about the ConneXions program. ConneXions, which Hildebrandt established in 2007, provided courses on relationships and parenting, rooted in the principles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A primary theme of the program is the dichotomy of truth and deception, when individuals allowed their personal wants, needs, and experiences to overshadow these truths. They were living in distortion, according to Jodi, according to the ConneXions course material that was reviewed by NBC News. Although Franke has prominently been featured alongside Hildebrandt in the service videos, none of her former clients who came forward claim to have been counseled by her. The depths of Hildebrandt's misgivings do run deep, particularly with her focus on porn and sex addiction, especially for men. It's significant to note that porn addiction isn't recognized as a legitimate disorder by the DSM-5 either. Yet it appears Hildebrandt, formerly specializing in porn addiction therapy, had no qualms diagnosing men without evidence or abnormal behaviors. It's kind of like,
oh my God,
men came there, you have a porn addiction.
Wow.
I'll save my comments till we're done. Spencer Tibbitt's story illustrates the profound disconnect in Hildebrandt's methods. At just 16, Tibbetts, who had clandestinely obtained a phone for video games, was thrust into a men's group primarily focusing on porn addiction. Despite his lack of understanding about porn, he was exposed to disturbing conversations involving the sexual fantasies of fellow group members, including a group member who talked about his incest fantasies. This is
God.
This is all the people that Jodi Hildebrandt's putting together in one circle and saying, let's talk, let's figure this out. Put the 16-year-old in there who was basically sentenced, I guess, to her by the parents for having a phone that he shouldn't have had. Now, I guess Jodi said, yeah, let's put you in the porn group. In a past transgression, Hildebrandt faced disciplinary action by Utah officials in 2012 for breaching confidentiality with one of her patients, who later turned out to be Adam Paul Steed. Following this, He had his church privileges revoked, got temporarily suspended from Brigham Young University, and underwent a divorce. All consequences of Hildebrandt's disclosures and allegations. Yeah. Reflecting on the devastation, Steed lamented, "My family got destroyed. My life got destroyed." Yeah. How did he not sue her at some point? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe there's probably some stuff protecting that. For women like Stephanie Jones and Eliza Tibbetts, Hildebrandt's diagnosis of control addiction, which is another one that, by the way, is not in the DSM-5, seemed not only unprofessional, but also mentally and emotionally detrimental. Both recounted feeling trapped, controlled, and constantly berated if they ever defied Hildebrandt's views. Hildebrandt very much being like a cult leader here. Hildebrandt's professional standing took a major hit recently, obviously with all this. The Utah Division of Professional Licensing disclosed last week that she voluntarily surrendered her mental health counseling license. Shouldn't that been taken away like when they had kids being picked up at the house? Shouldn't like this, the group said, no more of this.
There is a requirement to report any child abuse if you are a counselor. So I'm wondering how she skirted around this.
What if you're the counselor that's performing the abuse? It? Yeah, I think that they're probably not apt to, probably required to, but probably would not, I would think, if you're the one that's performing the abuse.
I would think if you're in the system in any way, and I you can't see me right now, but saying in the system in quotes, that they might be able to figure out that you've got a license to counsel and go, let's yank that.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, it looks like her counseling career is probably done after all this. But who knows? Crazier things have happened. People have come out of really weird situations years later and start up new cults and such. Happens all the time. So I don't know. Because I mean, nobody's died here, which we have to remember. There's definitely looking like a lot of abuse by these allegations. But at the end of the day, I don't know how long these two are going to get. I don't think it's not going to be a crazy, long, horrible time. I don't think, unless some other really deep, dark shit comes up. But I just don't see this being any more than like a 10 to 20 year sentence for either of them.
Well, and the thing is, we've got child abuse here, and I wonder at what point do we say enough is enough? No, nobody was killed, but we don't know that it couldn't have led to that.
No,
these kids were malnourished, and
I agree, but we've seen far worse people that are blatantly doing these things out in the open get far less time.
Yeah, and that's true. Now, I'm trying to figure out where I kind of lost my train of thought, but this is just such a disgusting case. And the fact that they were thriving on social media and thriving on the internet. How many people were taking their lessons and applying them to their own lives? And are there other cases out there just waiting to be discovered that were inspired by these two? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. She's teaching this way of living, and this is how you should parent. So how many followed the way of parenting here?
Yeah.
And now in their own world of their home and behind closed doors are also following the methods and practices taught by Jodi and Franke with their own children.
Yeah. And a lot of what I'm noticing with social media, YouTube, TikTok, there's a lot of people who will watch these videos, and if they're done really professionally, people fucking believe it. I've got somebody that I absolutely adore, and they're watching a lot of TikTok videos and getting medical advice from them. And I'm just shaking my head like, be careful. And these people are not experts. There's just somebody sitting in their kitchen, just going off on things that they claim they researched. Who knows what the research and sources are, but
looking at a TikTok
expounding
video
information.
It is not research because you saw it on TikTok. That doesn't mean you researched it. You have to then research what happens. Where did they get these thoughts? Where did they get these ideas? That's not the end all be all. Unfortunately, we have more access to information than any point in history. and we fail to actually use that information for knowledge and for furthering ourselves. I mean, what it actually really reminds me of, in like a very micro sort of way, is the IBLP. That's the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist. That's what the Duggars are a part of, where it was very much described as, if you watch the documentary Shiny Happy People on Amazon, it explains it quite well, where the IBLP isn't even technically a church, it's a group. But they have these principles that they teach, and they basically make each and every home its own micro cult. And the leaders in this one, in the Duggars, were Jim Bob and Jill. Jim Bob being like the highest and end all be all, and that's how they have like anybody who follows it. That's their homes are like that. It seems kind of like what Jodi was trying to do with her beliefs and what she thought of here's how you have to handle this, and otherwise you're violating your truths or whatever bullshit she was spewing. But yeah, it does make you wonder how many are out there that, and how many have had the realization to say, maybe we shouldn't be following this shit, or are they looking at her as like a persecuted woman who, her beliefs are being questioned, and I don't know, who knows, but it's pretty hard to argue when you have an emaciated child running out of your front door with duct tape around him that anything you're doing is good or right. So
yeah, that's where, it's one thing if these people were expounding some things about children and how to parent, and these kids were thriving and doing well, and there were witnesses to that they were thriving and doing well, and the kids seem happy, but it's a completely opposite story. And I'm just so worried about the damage that they've done to our society. Who else out there is living and abiding by what they espoused? It's terrifying.
I'm sure she's made an impact with a handful of people that she's reached, but what's far scarier is those larger organizations that do this sort of thing. But they all start somewhere, and unless we find them early on and call them out, and if they get caught, because had they not had an emaciated child running around, I don't think they would be caught. They'd keep doing what they got. But when we catch them and we make a stink about them and they get charged, maybe it slows down the progression of others thinking, maybe I'm going to do that. I don't know. But there's a lot of them in plain sight right now that we do not go after, and we choose to pretend don't exist, or they have protections against them, which they really shouldn't have. All in the name of the freedom of religion.
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts, and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member, exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast, dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.